Testing. What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Daily Grind Fantasy official Week 6 live stream. We don't have Kevin with us today, but we have TJ, so don't worry, guys. We'll be discussing everything from late-breaking injury news, new ownerships, some of our favorite cash and GPP options. TJ, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, Matt. How are you?
Doing great.
Yeah, it's unfortunate Kevin can't be here. R.I.P. to Kevin, guys.
He's don't worry, nothing's wrong with him. He's actually going to get a brand new car.
Yes.
So good times for Kevin. But nonetheless, we're still here with you guys. And now I don't have to listen to two rambling idiots, just one.
Just one rambling idiot.
So we might be able to get this done a little bit quicker than normal. But we'll cover all the major points. Feel free to ask any questions in the questions are in the live chat here below. We'll be sure to get to them. Just stay patient. I promise to all you guys we will get through to all the questions. So let's go ahead and start at the quarterback position. TJ.
Wait, Matt, before we start at the quarterback position, can we talk about how fire that intro was?
Oh, it was fire. Yeah. I did it by myself. No help whatsoever. So
I did nothing. Guys, I did nothing with the intro. So that's all, Matt. I'm not taking credit for it.
Yeah. We actually posted that intro to our Twitter if you guys want to give it a look, just to if you just want to do it in your free time, just to sit back and watch it. It's actually pinned to our post. So if you guys want to go ahead and watch that, feel free to do so. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and dive right into this NFL slate. I think 30 minutes or so ago, Adam Schefter tweeted that all games are good to go, which is great news for the NFL. So no teams are taking off the schedule here. I believe your Patriots are playing, right, TJ?
Yep.
Okay. So that's actually great because I actually have one of my favorite GPP options in that game, and I will get to that here. Once we cover the quarterback position, I might have just given it away. But let's go ahead and start here from the top and talk about the top 5 ownership. I think you'll love to hear that, TJ. Matthew Stafford here at 12.9%. We have Tannehill at 11.7%, Fitzpatrick at 8.9%, Deshaun Watson 8.4%, and then Kirk Cousins, so my boy Minshew isn't in the top 5 anymore, at 8.2%. TJ, how are you feeling about the very top 5% ownerships here?
So for this week for cash, I definitely think it's a good option to spend down. I think you have some really good cheap plays, and a couple that you just mentioned, and Tannehill, Fitzpatrick, and Kirk Cousins. Also Stafford too at 6.3, him being the most expensive of that 4 that I just named. In terms of cash, I'm not really on Deshaun Watson this week. I don't really like that matchup against that Tennessee secondary. They've been very good so far against opposing quarterbacks. But yeah, I think there's some really good cheap options. I mean, you look at a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who they just blew out San Fran last week. Like absolutely nobody saw that coming. If you sit here and say to yourself that you saw Ryan Fitzpatrick blowing out that 49ers defense, you're lying to yourself. But we've seen Fitzmagic so far be very productive for for Miami, and they're going up against a Jets defense that ranks 31st in DVOA against the pass, and they've given up the 22nd against opposing quarterbacks for Draftkings points. So I definitely like Fitzpatrick as a cheap option for cash. Also, Matthew Stafford. I was going to say Matthew Downs, but sorry, Matt, you were not in the NFL. But he is going up against your lovely Jaguars, who rank dead last in DVOA against the pass. And they've given up the 26th most points against opposing quarterbacks for DraftKings points. Clearly, they've struggled. So yeah, I think those are 2 really good options for cash. And also, we haven't talked about Tannehill at 5,900. Again, I think paying down for quarterbacks in cash is definitely the play. But that's going to give us some really expensive guys that are flying under the radar that are going to make really good tournament pivots.
I completely agree with that. And just looking at the Matthew Stafford, 12.9%, obviously going against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The one hesitation I have, and with him being like the most chalk in the slate, yes, if you look at the over-under, it makes complete sense. And me and Kevin were talking about this in the first look video, TJ. All of these guys throughout this entire game are just so cheap for the over-under that it was going to draw so much chalk. And it's actually gone down since it's opened up. It was at 54.5. Now it's at 53.5. I know it's only slightly. But the price tags are what are very intriguing in this game. Like you just alluded to, Jaguars dead last in DVOA, 6,300. I mean, you just can't hate that. The only thing with Matthew Stafford is, what is his true ceiling? Honestly, what is his ceiling? Because we've only seen him put up 17, 18, and 23. Is he really that good of a play? Yeah, it's a lackluster start for Matthew Stafford. Even going against the worst defense, I get it, matchup. But I feel like the matchup is the only thing that I really like for Matthew Stafford. I just feel like that's the only thing I like. At 12.9%, yes, it's relatively safe, but is it that safe? Does it have that big of a ceiling? And then you talk about somebody like Ryan Tannehill and Matt Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 30, 26, 25, 27. He's virtually beat Matthew Stafford in every single game in worse matchups. I mean, he played the best defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? No, he played a really good defense in the San Francisco 49ers. 43-17, Seattle, yes, they're horrible. Right. But again, 26. I mean, you just look at the potential here, and to sit here and think I'm calling Ryan Fitzpatrick safe. If I said at the beginning of the season, it's absolutely insane. Yeah. But right now, he is honestly safe at $5,900. This is a great pivot down. I don't really know how the game scripts kind of revolve around Ryan Fitzpatrick, but they blew the doors out on San Francisco 43-17, as you've talked about, and he still got 30.6 points. If they blow the doors off of the Jets, will they keep doing the same thing? He only threw the ball 28 times in that game, and he still ended up with 30.6. So, I mean, also all signs point to Stafford and Fitzpatrick being safe options. Ryan Tannehill, I don't know if I'm on him. I feel like he's hit or miss. I feel like that offense is so hit or miss. You don't know if Derrick Henry is going to get the ball a majority of the game. You don't know if Ryan Tannehill is going to be slinging the ball around. It's a great offense. Like, I love the offense. I love the Titans just in that regard. I think they're a great team. But is Ryan Tannehill going to be putting up the numbers that we've seen him put? It's just very streaky. $5,900. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think some of that ownership on Tannehill could be a little bit recency bias with that matchup against the Bills, where he looked pretty efficient. Again, only 28 attempts, like you mentioned, Fitzpatrick against the Niners, ironically. He only threw for 195 yards against the Bills. So
3 touchdowns, which helped him.
It is. Right. It definitely helped them. But, they are going up against a Houston defense that has struggled. But their secondary has been one of their brighter spots against opposing quarterbacks. So they actually rank in the top third. It's their run defense that I personally like to target when it comes to the Houston defense.
Yeah. I agree with that. And then looking at like Deshaun Watson, I hate to say it, but I don't see that big of a ceiling, at least with that $7,000 price tag. I actually see him more of a GPP option. I kind of agree with you there on Watson. But one person I actually want to talk about here is Kirk Cousins. And I don't love Kirk Cousins. I'll just straight up say that I don't love him at 6,100. But again, we're talking about pivots, right? We're looking at this game, Atlanta and Minnesota, 53 over under versus, let's just compare them straight to the Jaguars, 53.5. That game total is the exact same, and the spread's even the exact same. It's supposedly going to be competitive versus Atlanta, and we've seen Atlanta get in so many shootouts already. Why not Kirk Cousins? Like, what's the hate about him? He's pretty much just as efficient as Matthew Stafford, at least DFS wise. 22, 21, 14, and 16. I think he's a great pivot. I think he's a fantastic pivot. And if you're talking about GPPs, why not? I think the upside's there. Atlanta, we know, is horrible on defense. I don't know your thoughts on Kirk Cousins or even Matt Ryan. Like, why the heck not? So,
right. I mean, Atlanta's given up the second most passing yards to opposing quarterbacks, to giving up the most touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks. So all signs point to a good matchup for Kirk Cousins against that Atlanta secondary, where I'm pretty sure I said last week where, like, let's not jump the gun on the Atlanta. They're trash. The defense is terrible. So a good run defense, but the secondary obviously struggles against opposing quarterbacks. So we could definitely see Kirk Cousins light it up against Atlanta. The only thing that I'm kind of hesitant at is that over-under opened up at 56.5, and now it's all the way down to 52, with only 38% of the public bets coming in on the under. So that means sharp money is coming in on the under.
Yep.
So it is kind of a little hesitation, but I mean, still at 52 over under, I still think there's going to be a lot of points that are going to be scored. And I think Kirk Cousins is in a very good spot. The only thing I want to say about Stafford real quick at 6,300, I think I'd rather pay down in cash for Fitzpatrick and save that $400. I think they're both in good matchups. Stafford didn't have Golladay those first 2 games, and since his 2 games, it's just like his security. We talk about quarterbacks and security blankets. Obviously, Rodgers gets Devante Adams back today. Stafford just got Golladay back. Golladay, I think it's 15 targets over the last 2 games, so starting to get that rapport back. And I just think it's a good matchup against the Jaguars. And again, last week, it was his second week back with Golladay, and he posted almost 24 DraftKings points, which is the most in the season. So you mentioned the ceiling. Again, I think he hasn't even thrown. This is a guy that's thrown for 5,000 yards. I don't even know how many years in a row, or not. If it wasn't 5,000, it's toward the top 5 in terms of passing yards. He hasn't even thrown for 300 yards so far this year, which is kind of crazy. Played Chicago and played the Packers those first 2 games, which has been 2 pretty good secondaries. Played the Saints last week. They have Lattimore. They can get it done. Yep. So I just think it's a good matchup for Stafford. And, I think today's the day he throws over 300.
Yeah. I like I said, I don't hate Stafford. I just, my only question is he going to reach that ceiling? Is it going to be today? Yep. Yes. All signs point to him possibly getting that ceiling, but why would you bank on somebody who hasn't shown it yet versus somebody who has, like Ryan Fitzpatrick? Yep. So let's go ahead and I think that the top 5 is very obvious. Let's go ahead and break down the not so obvious options here. Some of our favorite GPP options. I don't know if you have any. I'm going to go ahead and start. One person I talked about in our first look video was Cam Newton. I expected him to have very low ownership, and sure enough, at 5.1%. The one thing I want to talk about with Cam Newton, I know you like that play, is this guy is literally the Patriots. Like, he is the Patriots offense. If you look at his statistics here, he's rushed the ball 9, 11, and 15 times. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's more than the majority of the running backs in the backfield. I mean, this guy is a running back. He's a running back. He's a quarterback. He does everything. I get that the over-under is very low, but when you're talking about somebody, we talk about usage rates in the NBA, right? The usage rate for Cam Newton has to be skyrocketing, right? It has to be crazy. So you talk about somebody with the ceiling regardless of the over-under. I think he's going to be the entire offense in this game. I think the game script kind of makes sense too, because they're going to have to run the ball. I think this is going to be a very monitored game from New England's side. They're not going to be throwing the ball 24/7. I believe they're going to go out and jump out to an early start. Obviously, Cam Newton has something to show off being out for a week. So I do like Cam Newton in the spot at very low ownership, 5.1%. I think his ceiling is phenomenal, and I think his price tag is actually very low here, 6.5K. I think it allows you to get to some other skill player positions. I really do like him. If you want to play him naked at the quarterback position, I don't hate that either. What are your thoughts, GPP wise?
I think if you are going to play him, I like that you just mentioned play him naked. So play him by himself because, he can get it done with his legs. Obviously, we've seen that with Cam. The only thing that I would mention here is Damian Harris back off the IR, got 17 carries last week. I think they like Cam because of his big body, obviously 6'5", 240. Damian Harris is also a big body. So he's a guy that they can rely on and actually give him, not consecutive, give him carries. I don't even know what word of that I was just looking for, but we're going to say consecutive, I guess. No, so I think consistently, that's the word I was looking for. So I think they can give the ball. I think they can run the ball with Damian Harris consistently, which is something they haven't been able to do with Sony Michel, Rex Burkhead, James White, just not really great running backs. Sony Michel has just been a complete disappointment, but Rex and James White are more of pass catching backs. So I don't know. Obviously, Cam was out last week, and that's when Damian Harris got 17 carries. He ran for 100 yards. So I'd be interested to see what Cam's rushing attack looks like with Damian Harris in the mix. I don't know. I mean, sure, he could easily get his 10 carries just because that's the way that Cam is built to play. So I do like Cam as a GPP play, but at 6,500, Matt, I'm looking at a guy like Brady, and just in a game where this should be a shootout, right?
I was waiting for you to say Brady. Yep.
Yeah, I got to. I mean, it's Brady and Rodgers for me, man. For tournaments, Those are the two guys I'm looking at. This game opened up at 51.5. The Vegas over under. It is now at 55 with 64% of the public bets coming on the over. So there isn't sharp money on the under. That over under has risen 3.5 points. You're showing Tom Brady at sub 4%, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Got Godwin. Yep, got Godwin back. Obviously, he's got the rapport with Mike Evans. Pretty shaky game against the Bears. I mean, the Packers have been pretty good. Their secondary, but their defensive DVOA ranks 4th to last in the NFL. So for me, in this game script that I'm thinking this game plays out, my brain's saying shootout. And if I'm seeing Tom Brady at sub 4% and Aaron Rodgers at sub 8%, I'm pretty sure around there. I think he's like 7.5. Like, I understand the price tag jump from Brady to Rodgers is significant at 1K, but like Brady at 6.5, at 6.5K, showing that low of ownership, like I'm definitely going to have some plays on him in tournaments. So I'd rather go Brady over Cam. The matchup against the Broncos, I think it's just going to play out. I think it's just going to be a boring game today. So I'm more interested in that Packers Bucks game in terms of quarterback tournament plays.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And Aaron Rodgers has already appeared in 2 of the 5 optimals so far on these 12 game slates. So Aaron Rodgers has proven that he can do it, and he's proven with the game scripts that he's going to be throwing the ball the entire time. I think the offense is obviously it's obviously in throwing mode. It has gotten off to that sense to start the season here. I think that Tom Brady is also in a great spot. We've seen Tom Brady obviously impress. You look at guys, not to jump ahead, but like Devante Adams with a very pricey price tag, and then also Mike Evans at 6.9K, I believe he was. Those guys are obviously very hard to get to. So talk about low stack potential, low stack ownership potential. It's crazy. And you're comparing that to Matthew Stafford and Galladay, DJ Chark, we don't know if he's going to play, but if he's out, look at Chenault. And Gardner Minshew, that's going to be very high stack percentages. It's going to be very high in the chart. I think that these guys are going to fly under the radar. I love the stack potential in both of these, or at least in this game, and with both of these quarterbacks. But I don't want to go ahead.
DJ Chark is in, sorry.
He's in. Okay. Did you just get that news?
Yeah, and so is Edelman. Yeah, Edelman was projected to play, but Chark was the only guy I feel like on the slate that was actually questionable. But yeah, he's good. Chark is good.
GB versus Tampa Bay, not going to be a shootout. Well, Vegas disagrees with you.
I mean, I can see it both ways. I feel like, the Packers are the fourth best secondary against opposing quarterbacks. So yeah, it's a tough matchup against Brady. I'm personally just looking for upside and a tournament pivot off of those high-owned lower quarterbacks. I'm just thinking to myself, Brady's going to be sub 4%. In a potential shootout. I mean, yeah, would I be surprised if this is 21-17? No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Both these defenses have been very good to start the year. But I'm just looking at the two quarterbacks in Brady and Rodgers. And
not to talk about the rivalry, the GOAT rivalry.
Yeah. So, I'm just looking at tournament pivots at those. I mean, in Brady, it's 6,500. He's a little bit cheaper than Rodgers, obviously. So I'm going to hope for a shootout because I'm going to have some stacks of them for sure.
Completely agree with
you.
But
I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't a shootout at all.
I didn't realize how much I rambled when Kevin is on there, so I'm going to go ahead and jump forward here to the running backs. We've been taking up a lot of time in the QB position. Let's move on. Running backs. Derrick Henry, 29.3%. Madison, 27.1%. Montgomery, 22.7%. Mike Davis is back, 19%. And then James Robinson at 15.2%. Well, back on the top 5 is what I meant. So when we look at this, the top owned guys here, I think there's one guy that stands out to me, and that's going to be Madison. Obviously, with Cook out, he steps right into this role, 27.1%. I assume, TJ, you want to go ahead and talk about him. What are your thoughts on Madison, Derrick Henry, Montgomery, top 3 there?
Yeah, I think Madison's a pretty safe cash play at 7,200. The Falcons have actually been pretty good stopping the run so far this year, but it's the pass catching that they've given up has been huge and has really hurt them. Sorry, I have a billion tabs open, like I always say. They've given up the second most receiving yards and the most receptions to opposing running backs. So I definitely do like Mattinson in the upside in this matchup. I don't really know how big of a drop-off it is from Cook to Mattinson because we've seen Mattinson kind of back up Cook over the last, 2-ish years. And he's been very productive when he's actually gotten carries. So I think they're going to use Mattinson how they would Cook. I think they're going to, he had 20 carries against Seattle, 100 yards. So, again, I think Atlanta's front seven against opposing running backs has been pretty good. But again, it's the pass catching ability, and we know Mattinson can make plays out of the backfield receiving. And I think that's where he can make a big dent against this Atlanta defense. But yeah, I think with the ownership that he's showing, he's probably going to be 40 to 50% in cash.
Yeah. Him and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, him and Derrick Henry. I love Derrick Henry at 7. It's pretty crazy that you got a guy that's backing up Cook and now he's the RB1 and he's 7,200 on a slate. It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely like Mattinson for cash.
Obviously very talented, like you said, very efficient when he gets the ball. He carried the ball 20 times last game, 112 yards, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 24 yards. Obviously did it all. And you're talking about the Falcons' soft defense. And again, this has some high shootout potential. So I do like him. I don't think anything else needs to be said there. Derrick Henry. I want to talk about Derrick Henry because he got the ball 19 times last game. I love Derrick Henry just from a DFS perspective because I feel like he always gets overlooked, even when he is the top chalk guy here on the slate. You talk about safe. You talk about floor. This guy is literally getting the ball 20 times a game, and even when they blew out Buffalo, he still got the ball 19 times a game. And he, other than the Jaguars, I don't know what that was. That must have been, I don't know. I know the Jaguars are horrible on defense too, so I really don't know what that was. But you exclude that game, and he's gotten the ball over 20 times every single game. He has a floor of 20 DK points. And like I said, I don't think we've seen a ceiling game from him yet, even when he's had that 30 DK performance. I think he has a very favorable matchup again versus Houston. I think this is yet another game where you know what you're going to get from Derrick Henry. Like you just know. You know he's going to get the ball 20 times. You know his ceiling is very high. He has a very good chance to hit the optimal yet again. So $7,300. My cheat sheet actually shows him as being good chalk, so I really do like him here in the spot. I think he's a good GPP option and also cash play. So the next guy on our list here is David Montgomery, 22.7%. I actually want to hear your take on David Montgomery. What are your thoughts at him being third highest owned?
So first, real quick, I do love Derrick Henry. Texans have given up the most rushing yards to opposing running backs. It's a game where the Titans are favored by 3.5 points. If they can jump out to a lead, that just means more carries for Derrick Henry. He only had 17, I think you mentioned, against the Bills. He had 25 plus in his first 3 games. So if this is a game where they have the lead against the Bills, and for some reason he didn't get as many carries as he had the past 3 games. But yeah, I mean, they got other guys involved. Jeremy McNulls.
I think they leaned
9
on
carries. I think the second, second half they leaned off of him, especially in that fourth quarter. So, but yeah, so you mentioned David Montgomery. So the one interesting thing with Montgomery has been since Tariq Cohen has gone into the IR, Montgomery's played 85 and 81% of the offensive snaps. He's had only 20 carries in those 2 games, but it's the pass catching that's kind of kept him fantasy relevant. And we know Tariq Cohen, that's somebody that the Bears leaned on heavily, the pass catching running back in that offense. He's racked up 14 targets in the last 2 games since Tariq Cohen's been out. So he's shown the ability to make plays out of the backfield receiving, going up against a Panthers team that ranks 29th in DVOA against the pass. So yeah, I fully expect David Montgomery to have a big game against the Panthers. I think he's a pretty good cash option. So the ownership to me makes sense.
Yeah, I like him for cash, but I honestly do not like him at all for GPP. And I'll say this because $5,800 I feel like is just a trap. When you talk about somebody who has had a ceiling of 21.7, and yes, he has plenty of opportunities to step up in this offense. I just feel like he hasn't shown that ceiling yet. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant. We've seen David Montgomery in past get the starting role, and the ceiling, if you just even go back to 2019, hasn't been over 20 points. It's just for GPPs, it's very hard for me to get behind David Montgomery being a high ceiling potential guy. It might just be strictly the Chicago offense. We just have yet to see a boom game, like an actual boom game from David Montgomery. That's just what scares me. 5.8K. It's an obvious cash play. I think he's obviously got a ton of volume to back that up. But when you talk about somebody like straight up like Mike Davis, who has shown his floor has been 20, you just talk about such a higher ceiling. Mike Davis, obviously, with Christian McCaffrey being out yet again, 19% ownership. Honestly, just as good as the other cash options here at the very top. 7.3K with Derrick Henry, Madison, 7.2K, but Mike Davis showing the exact same potential, if not more, at a 7K price tag. Does draw a bad matchup versus Chicago. I still don't mind it just with the amount of utilization that he has on this offense. Obviously involved in the passing game, also in the rushing game. I think he just is setting himself up for even more success. Again, 19% ownership. And then James Robinson obviously has come back down to earth just a little bit, but again, a very favorable matchup. 6.8K is cheaper than the other 4 that we talked about, with the other 3. 15.2%. Have anything else to add about Mike Davis and James Robinson?
Obviously, like Mike Davis, he's just been doing it all for the Panthers. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen when McCaffrey comes back, especially if McCaffrey starts out slow when he comes back from that ankle injury. I want to see how they actually utilize Mike Davis, if they do at all. Kind of feel like when McCaffrey gets going, he's just going to be on the bench again, which is unfortunate because he's been a guy that's been so productive for them and they've leaned on him so much. James Robinson, I obviously like this matchup against Detroit. I mentioned that when we were talking about the Jags and Lions game. For the Jags, I really like the rushing attack over the passing attack. Sorry, Minshew. Sorry, Matt. The Detroit is ranked 31st in DVOA this year against the run and 32nd in defense adjusted line yards. So they've just been getting absolutely torched on the ground. So I definitely like James Robinson in the upside at 6,800. I'm definitely going to have a pretty high amount of him today, and I like him as a conviction play as well. Matt, where do you have him in terms of ownership in running backs? Is he in that top 5? Is he the 5th highest owned?
Who are you talking about? Sorry?
James Robinson?
James Robinson, yes, he's in the top 5, 15.2%.
Okay, so he is, so he's a little higher than I was hoping. But yeah, I still think he's a really good tournament play, and I think he's a pretty good pivot off of some of those higher owned guys like Mike Davis and like Alexander Mattinson.
Yeah, and I think there are some crazy elite options, and we're going to go ahead and just jump right into GPP options. One person that stands out to me here is going to be James Conner. James Conner has yet to show us a bad game. I feel he's so efficient in this offense. 7.1K, literally the exact same price tag, but obviously has shown a ceiling. He's been in, I think, one optimal out of the 5 weeks we've seen him play. 7.2% ownership. It never makes any sense to me why this guy is so low owned. I think a lot more people are starting to be on him because he's now showing at 7.2%. In previous weeks, he's shown half of that, if not less. But James Conner is this offense. He's going to keep it rolling. They're obviously without Deontay Johnson today, so obviously they're going to have to rely on some other weapons. I think James Conner is in yet again another great spot for this offense. They're at a 50.5 over under right now. Yeah, versus Cleveland Browns is expected to be competitive. So we're talking about a rushing game. The game script is setting itself up for a rushing matchup. I really do like James Conner here going against the Browns. GPP option, TJ.
I like it. I always like James Conner, man. I think he's so undervalued in terms of what he actually brings to the table. So if the ownership's down, I can definitely get behind that.
Yeah. Do you have any that stand out to you?
So a guy that I'm kind of looking at right now for tournaments is at 6.2K, and that's going to be Joe Mixon against the Colts. Okay. Obviously, it's a very tough match. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Contrarian plays, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Very tough matchup against the Colts. The Colts actually gave up 124 rushing yards to the Browns last week. They got gashed, not gashed in terms of against the run, just in general. Very suspect performance from that Colts defense, something we haven't been used to these first 5 games for them as they've been so productive. But yeah, so I'm looking at Joe Mixon. I'm looking at ownership, a guy that has really carried this Bengals offense so far. I mean, him and Boyd, I feel like, have been the 2 main focal points for the Bengals offense. Coming off his last 2 games where he had 24 and 25 carries. So I'm kind of just looking for opportunity. Also in the pass catching ability, he's had 14 targets in his last 2 games, and he's been involved pretty heavily in the pass catching field. So at 6,200, I think he's a little bit of a cheaper option. Again, this is more of a deeper GPP play. I feel like a lot of people aren't going to be looking at a guy like Joe Mixon in that matchup against the Bengals. I personally like the Bengals plus 7.5 today. Don't quote me on that. Please don't take it, because if they lose, then I'm going to feel bad if you guys lose money. But yeah, I think if the Bengals can jump out to a lead against these Colts, again, I kind of like them plus 7.5. I could expect a really big game from Joe Mixon if they continue to pound the rock with him and kind of let Burrows not make mistakes against that very elite Colts secondary.
So I want to ask you a question, TJ, because we know that Melvin Gordon is out going against your defense here.
Don't do it. Don't take Philip Lindsay. Don't do it.
4.3K. Do you have any interest whatsoever?
No.
4.3? No?
No.
Okay. I don't either. That's why I was asking. I was trying to press you to get you to say yes. No, I don't think he has a ceiling. I don't think he has any ceiling whatsoever. I think if you're paying 4.3K, you're going to have to get 8.6 points. I think even that's pushing it from Philip Lindsay. I think he can hit value there.
Yeah, I think so. He is carrying a lot of ownership. If you're looking for like a really cheap option to try and plug and play in cash or something like that, like, yeah, sure, I can get behind it because I think the opportunity is going to be there. For me, I think him and Freeman, I think it's probably going to be like maybe 58 to 65% of the snaps for Philip Lindsay and the rest going to Freeman. I think if this is a game where Denver falls behind to the Patriots, I think you could see more of Royce Freeman because he is more of that pass catching back opposed to Philip Lindsay. We saw that last year. So, yeah, I mean, he just doesn't do it for me. That ownership is crazy high. I get he's starting. I get no Melvin Gordon. Like, I understand all of that, but I'm not going to take it. No, I'm not going to fall for that.
I'm going to go ahead just because we're pressed on time here, move on to the wide receiver position. And I'll just say one more name, Aaron Jones. And then we'll go ahead and talk about wide receiver here. AJ Brown, 22.1% ownership. Kenny Golladay, 21.3. Devontae Adams, 19.3. Thielen, 18.6. He was actually at the top here 2 days ago. And then Claypool, 16.2%. I had a little bit of a rant here about Chase Claypool and the Pittsburgh
Matt, how
offense.
do you feel about Chase Claypool? I mean, he had, 45 DraftKings points last week? So that means he's at least going to get 42, right?
Yeah, so here's my
Deontay
thing.
Johnson,
I'll
Juju
say it
going to get doubled.
I'll say what I said to you earlier. The thing with Chase Claypool and any wide receiver, anybody, I don't care what position, anybody who goes off in 1 week, it's funny. The DFS industry expects they'll do the exact same thing that's the following week. It's like, yes, Chase Claypool obviously is talented. But guys, if you believe Pittsburgh's going to go off today, and a lot of you Claypool owners will expect that. Why are you not leaning on somebody like James Conner more so than Claypool or even Juju? I mean, obviously Juju hasn't been that great to start the season, but if you're going to have Claypool, like, you have to actually believe in this offense. Like, is Claypool set to have a great game against Cleveland? I don't even think so. Like, I think the matchup is going to favor more of the running game. 5,200, I get why the ownership's that high, but it's just hilarious. The DFS industry just continues to amaze me. It's just funny. I guess Chase Claypool is the best wide receiver we've ever seen after last week. So I don't agree with the chalk there. If I'm looking for strictly a cash filler, I might plug in Claypool. But again, you're still talking about the wide receiver 2 here, right? I'm maybe an emerging wide receiver 1, but wide receiver 2 for the time being. And again, we're still relying on this Cleveland defense to get it done. Like, there's still Cleveland defense is nothing to play with here. It's actually a very bad matchup for Pittsburgh, at least in the wide receiver game. So I don't like Claypool as much as I do somebody like AJ Brown. Galladay has plenty of upside. Devante Adams, we've already talked about, 8,000, and also Thielen. Like, all those guys I love substantially more than Claypool. What are your thoughts on the top 5 here?
I mean, Matt, that's your Notre Dame guy, though, isn't it?
I don't care.
I'm just ripping on him, huh?
I'm trying to lead everybody in the right direction here. All right. I'm just trying to win.
He went for 42.6 last week. He's gonna go for at least 40. Like, that's just how it works. I mean, if you're telling me that I can get Chase Claypool at 5,200 or AJ Brown against Houston at 5,600, like, I'm gonna take AJ Brown, I think, every single day. So yeah. The pricing on AJ Brown just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Yeah. First game back from injury against the Bills, he caught 7 and 9 targets for 82 yards and a touchdown. It's more of a when you think of Houston again.
Hold on, TJ, you're lagging like bad. Hold on, you got some technical difficulties Henry, here. I'm calling them back, guys. Don't worry. That was awkward. You guys saw that go away for me. I think he's gonna be reconnecting here. I'm gonna try calling him back, but for the time being, let's go ahead and talk about Chase Claypool and obviously the rest of these wide receivers at the top here. So yeah, Robo TJ. I'm going to wait for him to call me back. It looks like he just straight up didn't. It looks like there he goes. Are you there? Yeah, you're here now. You were a Robo TJ there for a second.
I was a robot?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. I wish I saw that.
Yeah.
What of my rant did you actually hear?
I heard everything about how AJ Brown should be, or you don't get his price tag. Why he's so phenomenal at that price tag.
All right, so I'm not going to touch it. He's a good cash play if you guys need it at 5,600. I think he's a good filler. And then I said Claypool, if you are looking for a cheaper wide receiver, I think you can play him in cash. I'd definitely rather go AJ Brown. And if you have the money, can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
I just want to make sure. Yep. Did you mention Galladay?
I mentioned Galladay and how much I like his ceiling more so than Claypool. Yeah.
Yeah, so we mentioned Stafford. We mentioned the Jaguars are dead last in DVOA against the pass. Galladay's back his last 2 games, 15 targets over those last 2 games. I think it's a very good matchup against that Jaguars secondary, which has been super suspect so far to start the year. Again, Matt, sorry, your Jaguars are not very good. So yeah, I would rather get up. If you are looking at Claypool and thinking he's going to have another big game and you have the money, I'd rather get up and spend on Kenny Galladay. And I would definitely rather get AJ Brown in terms of cash before I'm going to a guy like Claypool. And then you mentioned Thielen. Yeah, I mean, the Falcons have given up the most passing yards to opposing quarterbacks, to opposing wide receivers. He's obviously Kirk Cousins' number 1 option, and rightfully so. At 7,300, if you have the option to pay up for him, again, I think he's a fantastic cash play. And then you mentioned Devante Adams. I'm definitely going to be having some Devante and Aaron Rodgers stacks. And unfortunately, those are 2 pretty expensive guys on the slate. So I'm going to have to differentiate myself somewhere else. So if I'm looking to salary save, I'm probably going to do that wide receiver and tight end. But yeah, I'll definitely have some Aaron Rodgers and some Devante Adams stacks today.
I mean, just look right underneath of Claypool, TJ, and we see somebody like Devante Parker. We know how much you love Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, talk about another phenomenal pivot. I know they're $1,100 difference here from Claypool to Parker, but I mean, even that's a fantastic play. I mean, especially if you think Ryan Fitzpatrick is still going to continue to be fantasy relevant. So I like that option. And let's go ahead and just roll right into GPPs. I believe I lost your video, but no worries. We can still hear your voice, TJ.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's more. I think it's more mine. I think it's Streamlabs not picking up your video. No worries.
All good.
So let's go ahead and jump right into the wide receiver GPP options. I will go ahead and start here. Like I said, I think Devante Adams is a great option. I know he's more of a chalk option. I know he's higher owned, but I think his ceiling is phenomenal. I'm going to move on right past him. But we're going to stay in the same game for Pittsburgh. We're going to talk about the Claypool chalk, right? But why not somebody like Juju? Take a shot on Juju. He hasn't shown his true potential yet in terms of ceiling play. But again, $6,600 is such an awkward price tag at 3.9% ownership. I love Juju for a pivot, just straight up. Same thing like DJ Chark. I think in that same game for the Lions and the Jaguars, you're looking at the awkward price tags of some of these other wide receivers, and they're so darn cheap that people are going to be paying down for the wide receiver position. Galladay's right there, but DJ Chark is $6,300. Nobody's going to be willing to pay up for that. We've seen him have obviously a ceiling game not too long ago, so I like him here at that 3% ownership. Those are my 2-3 favorite plays for GPPs. TJ, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, obviously Juju's had a pretty lackluster start to the year. He had a very good game against the Giants in week 1, and since then he's kind of fizzled out a little bit. I don't know if more defenses are kind of honing in on him and letting guys like Deontay Johnson, who's obviously been out, and Chase Claypool beat them. But yeah, it's been a struggle so far for Juju. I think it's a pretty good opportunity for him to bounce back against the Cleveland Browns defense. And you mentioned Chark. If Chark is fully healthy, I definitely like that matchup against Detroit in what could be a potential shootout at 6,300. You mentioned Cleveland and Pittsburgh. I'm kind of looking at Odell, Matt.
Yeah.
I think he's he obviously had that one huge game against Dallas where he had 3 total touchdowns. But yeah, I think the opportunity is there. Jarvis Landry also banged up. Divisional matchup against the Steelers, so could be just absolutely physical. That's the kind of game that both those defenses like to play. So I'm looking at opportunity. 9 targets against Indy. Again, a huge game against Dallas. Baker's been trying to get him the ball, and we've seen when he has the ball in his hands, he can be productive. So he's showing pretty low ownership. So I definitely don't mind Odell. I mentioned Tom Brady against the Packers, and I'm going to mention it again. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans both showing sub 6% ownership. I think those are great pivot plays off of some more expensive and guys that are garnishing more ownership. I just kind of like that matchup, Matt. We talked about it. I like how the over-under has risen 3.5 points. I just like how the ownership is so cheap. Again, this game could easily be 21-17. I'm praying for a shootout because I am going to be I'm going to be stacking the Bucks, and I'm going to have some Packer stacks as well. But yeah, if I can get some Brady, Evans, and Godwin lineups, I'm definitely going to be doing that. In another guy in a tough matchup, Robbie Anderson at 6,300. I mean, again, opportunity for him. The targets have just been there every single week. 8, 10, 6, 11, 13. Obviously, Teddy Bridgewater's number one option. Tough matchup against that Bears secondary, but at 6,300, around 10-ish%, I'm pretty sure we have him pegged for.
Yep.
I definitely like him potentially as a pivot off of Kenny Golladay in tournaments. But again, I am very high on Golladay as well. I'm just thinking of ownership percentages. But yeah, I definitely like Robbie Anderson too at 6,300.
Real quick, guys, I know some of you are streaming coming right in here from the Awesemo stream here. So if you guys do have any questions, feel free to ask them. We're going to go to our question segment here pretty soon. TJ, I'm going to make an executive decision. We're only going to go through tight ends. We're not going to cover defenses just so we can get through all the questions. We have a ton of them. And we're going to cut it a little bit short. So let's go ahead. I'm going to give one more final wide receiver GBP option, and that is going to be Justin Jefferson from Minnesota, strictly because of Thielen's ownership, 18.6%. You're talking about a nice pivot if you're looking for that same kind of stack potential. Somebody just asked that question, Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, and you read my mind. I actually love that for GPP upside, just strictly because we talked about the Atlanta and Minnesota ownership in general has just been lower than these other shootout potential games. And again, I really do like Justin Jefferson. 6K, talk about boomer bust. I mean, he is literally the definition of boomer bust, but I think it's more so in Kirk Cousins' gameplay rather than Justin Jefferson. So let's go ahead over to the tight end position, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up there and then answer any questions you guys do have. Jonnu Smith, 14.7. I'm only going to cover the top 3 here, TJ, just because we know how much of a the tight end's so volatile. Irv Smith here, 14%, and then Eric Ebron, 9.7%. What about those top three? I mean, do you like any one of them? I feel like it's tough.
Yeah, no, I definitely like Jonnu Smith at 5,200. I think that's a pretty good price tag, and I think the ownership is understandable for sure. 5 touchdowns so far to start the year. I mentioned A.J. Brown being Tannehill's favorite target. You can definitely say that Jonnu Smith is his second favorite target. 7 targets last week against the Bills. Again, 5 touchdowns to start the year. He's been very productive for the Tennessee Titans. He's seen 5+ targets in every single game. He's seen 7+ in 3 of them. So, yeah, I mean, Jonnu Smith in a matchup against the Houston secondary, I definitely like him at 5,200. I think if you need to save, I think you can go to Irv Smith in this matchup against the Atlanta secondary. That's just been absolutely putrid. He's been the tight end min the last 3 weeks. He had 5 targets against Seattle, 4 receptions for 64 yards. So he's obviously getting more involved in the offense. Obviously, as is Justin Jefferson. So, if you're looking to save, yeah, I can see myself paying down for Irv Smith at 2,500. I'm not going to expect a huge game from him, but if he can hit me value, I think that's a perfect plug and play in cash. And then who else did you mention, Matt?
Eric Ebron. I guess they're assuming the usage is going to go to him. I keep bringing up usage.
Yeah, with Deontay Johnson out. Yeah, I mean, no, the targets have been there. Again, I think for me, is he going to find the end zone or not?
Yeah.
If he's not going to find the end zone, I feel like he'll be in that 40-yard range, a couple targets.
Yep.
A couple
exactly where he's been.
If he can fall in the end zone, I think he'd be a fantastic play at 4,100. Yeah, you got to fall in the end zone. Just Big Ben's going to throw through triple coverage. Just make the play, Eric Ebron. But yeah, I think for me, Matt, in terms of tight ends, I kind of like saving at Irv Smith, honestly, at 2,500. Unfortunately,
our boy Tucker Silva just subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for that subscription, man.
Hey, Tuck, thanks, bud.
Let's go ahead and cover the top 3 here. Jonnu Smith, 14.7%. I think it's just by far the most obvious option here on the slate. You just talk about the targets and the reps that he gets. It's just by far the best. He's a wide receiver in the tight end spot at this point. I do like him here. 7, 8, 5, and 7 targets. You can't really turn your head away. Everything else is more of a crapshoot here. Mark Andrews continues to be under-owned, and he's still not at the top. I don't get it. He finds the end zone virtually every single weekend at this point, or he has been. 20 and 17 DK points. I like that for a GPP pivot. I know he's just out of the top 3, but still a nice pivot overall. Gesicki, a nice option. And then Hawkinson is actually my favorite GPP option for the tight end position. I keep going back to the Jags and Lions. People are going to be on Golladay, and they're going to be on James Robinson. Well, what about everybody else? There has to be some points scored across the board in that game. Stay in that game. Go to people like Hawkinson. Why the heck not? $5,300, an awkward price tag. Going to carry very low ownership, TJ. If you had any other GPP options at the tight end position, where are you looking?
I'm interested in Tonyan. Not really from a DraftKings perspective. I kind of just want to see what is. I mean, he was 3,400 against Atlanta. He's 5,100. So I think the salary is really high. Obviously coming off a 3 touchdown game. I just kind of want to see if they still utilize him as much as they have over the last 2 games with Devante Adams out. So I don't know if I'm going to, be overweight on him or even play him today. It's more so I just want to see how he fits in the offense with obviously Aaron Rodgers' number 1 option being back today.
Yeah.
No, I definitely like Hawkinson. Again, we keep harping on that matchup, and rightfully so. Trey Burton is a guy that's kind of snuck up a little bit there for the Colts. We love Phillip Rivers. We know Phillip Rivers loves his tight ends. And he's been pretty productive over the last 2 games in terms of targets. He's seen 5 and 6. So I'm going to be keeping my eye on Trey Burton as well. I mean, it's a pretty good matchup against the Bengals. Again, I like the Bengals plus 7.5. But at 3,100, I think he's a pretty decent pivot off of a guy like Irv Smith if you can spend up for him.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think this week specifically, TJ, is the week we don't see elite tight ends that are so obvious, and it draws a majority of the chalk. So I think this week's going to be a total crapshoot. I feel like anybody in the top 10 here can appear in the optimal. I think you just got to plug and play. If you're playing a bunch of different lineups, feel free to choose from the top 10. I don't think any specific one stands out that much more than the other one. I think Jonnu Smith obviously is the best option, but again, strictly because of his price tag. I don't know if he's going to have as high as a ceiling as somebody like Mark Andrews, Hawkinson, Gesicki. I can see either one of those guys outperforming him this week.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go ahead and go to the rapid fire TJ session for the questions on the right, if you don't mind, TJ. Let's go ahead and fire through these last 9 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
Matt, real quick, I'm just going to say defenses. Just say them.
Just
Dolphins, Patriots. That's where I'm thinking. If
Okay.
you can get up for the Ravens, sure.
Yep.
But yeah, if you can spend up for them. Dolphins, Ravens.
Yeah,
Dolphins, Patriots.
Forgetting the elite Jaguar defense, but yeah, I completely agree with you there.
Are trash. That's what I'm seeing. Okay, you guys can't see me, so that's fine. I took my shirt off, but let's get it going. Okay, so what do we got here? What do we got here?
Are you starting from the top or bottom?
I'm gonna start from the top,
okay,
but I'm gonna look for Lindsey a lock for cash with the Melvin news. I don't necessarily think he's a lock, but if you're looking to save money at 4,300, I think he's a cheap option. I think you can plug him in. If I'm stacking the Ravens, Matt, should I put Lamar, Andrews, and Brown in the same lineup, or Lamar with one of the two?
You know what? I got the exact same question. You might be the same person too. I actually got to ask on Patreon earlier this week, and I think the reason for that is because you guys see my top leverage stack. No, I agree with the full game stack. If in smaller GPPs and bigger GPPs, we've seen nothing more than a one QB wide receiver and then coming back with an opposing wide receiver make the actual optimal. So you're gonna have to pick one or the other. If you're playing very big GPPs and smaller ones, you can get away with that full game stack.
Yeah, I think the same is said. I had a stack last week with Lamar, Andrews, and Brown. First half, I was winning $700. Second half, I didn't cash.
Yeah.
What do you think about McLaurin, Crowder, and Golladay for wide receiver cash? So Pierman's back for the Jets. Just keep an eye on that. I mean, I don't know how many targets he's going to take away from a guy like Crowder, who's obviously been most of that offense for the Jets, and Joe Flacco and Sam Darnold. I don't like McLaurin and Crowder for cash. I definitely like Golladay. I think there's some other wide receivers that you can look at in terms of cash. I kind of would rather go like AJ Brown at 5,600.
I think Golladay is a safe floor, but also high ceiling potential. You look at his floor, 17, 16 in 2 weeks he's played. You can't look away from that. I feel like in the game scripts they're going to be throwing the ball all game. I mean, everything points in that direction of him being good chalk.
Lamar Jackson against a shaky Eagles defense. Yeah, we saw the Eagles get torched last week against Big Ben and the Steelers. I definitely like Lamar as a GPP play for sure.
Yep, I love Lamar Jackson.
Start 2, PPR. Julio. Oh, this is a fantasy question. That's fine. Julio, Scary Terry, so Terry McLaurin, Devante Parker, Claypool, and Boyd.
Start 2?
Yep. God, I want to say Julio, but I'm really scared with him coming back from injury.
Isn't that bad that you're hesitant on starting Julio over Claypool at this point?
I just traded for Julio too. I would probably go. Oh boy, that's tough. I would go Julio, and I would say Devante Parker. Those are gonna be my two.
Yep, I like Devante Parker the best out of that list though.
A lot of good receivers in that 5 that you got. Lions taking down the Jags, Matt. Yep, that's 100% to know. TJ's eyes equal Ferrari. Matt's eyes equals Toyota Corollas. Kevin, you've never said something more accurate before in your life. GB Tampa Bay not going to be a shootout. Again, I could definitely see that. 21-17, but I'm hoping for a shootout because I'm going to be stacking that. Chark is in. Thank you. Hardman, Judy, or Gallup. Oh God, none if you can. I would.
That's so rude.
I just don't know. I think that's fantasy, so we're gonna skip that. I would say
Cowboys
Gallup,
are on the slate.
They're on the slate, but Gallup kind of looked like Dalton's favorite target when Dak had his ankle go the other way. Pay up for wide receivers or running backs.
I like paying up for running backs, me personally, but I think also there's some good pay up options at wide receiver, so I could see either or. I know you hate that answer.
I could go either or. FanDuel love Parker from Dolphins. Yeah, I think Devante Parker's in a pretty good spot today.
The big question is FanDuel going to update their scoring this
Have they
week?
Still not? Have they still
no,
not?
They
done
have.
That?
They've gotten through it, but I think the whole thing with FanDuel, and not to get too much into it, but they put out some bogus response on their statisticians aren't connecting with their back end. It's a technical issue. It doesn't matter at that. Yeah,
doesn't matter. Move past it.
Right.
Mattinson, great. Yeah, I'm just cutting you off. Mattinson, great cash play. Definitely. Claypool is a chase this week. Juju will be barely owned. I 100% agree with you. Juju and Connor, great leverage plays. 100%. Safest cash plays. Wide receiver. I'm going to say Golladay. Running back. I'm going to. God, I want to say Derrick Henry.
I like Henry.
I think Cash, I think Galladay for wide receiver, and for running back, I would maybe Mattinson. I think Montgomery, Mattinson, Davis, and Henry are all cash viable. Claypool's still in a good spot for cash. I definitely agree with you. I think if you need to save money, you can go to Claypool and cash. How many lineups are you making the Millie Maker, TJ? I'm maxing out at 150. Full Brady, Godwin. I'm just kidding. I'm not. Full Brady, Godwin, Evans stack and run it back with Adams. I love that. I'm definitely going to have some of that. Julio going overlooked at 6,700. I definitely think he is. I just don't know about how hurt he actually. I mean, if Julio can go, Julio can go. And I think that if that game's going to be a shootout, I expect a big game from Julio and potentially Calvin Ridley.
The only thing with that is, like, if you look at that price range, like Mike Evans, I'd much rather pay for.
Yeah,
I think it's just so much safer.
I agree with you, Matt. Thoughts on Marvin Jones Jr.? I mean, I feel like he's kind of just fell by the wayside, and especially with Galladay back. But in a potential shootout, I could get behind having some Marvin Jones. Yeah. Is Rojo / Godwin and A-Rod / Adams too much for a GPP? Is Rojo / Godwin? So is he talking about a 4-stack?
Where do you see that?
He's saying he wants.
I see. Okay. You're talking. I think he's talking about both of those combos together in a GPP.
Yeah, so like a 4-stack?
No, it's not, especially if that game's going to shoot out. But again, you have to pick your contest wisely when you do that.
Right. I think Rojo would fall by the wayside if that game shoots out. So I think if you have A-Rod, Adams, and Godwin, I think you're in a better position than if you have Rojo in there as well.
No, I agree with that.
Julio, a sneaky GPP play, okay. Lamar, Andrews, Brown, and running it back with Ertz, 2 tight ends. Okay, yep, I can get behind that. I definitely like that Lamar. And then I can get behind both Andrews and Brown if they both have big games. Like, yeah, I'll probably have a lineup with all 3 of them. Tannehill and AJ, or Fitz and Parker on DK. That's so tough. I'm going to go Fitz and Parker.
I agree.
Oh, that's tough, though. That's very tough.
No, I agree with that. I think that just because of ownership, though.
Yep. Best GPP quarterback.
I like Lamar Jackson. I also like Cam Newton, but I don't like him in a wide receiver stack. I don't like Cam Newton like pairing him with another wide receiver. Sorry,
Squeak Patrol. Hello.
You know what? I've been rambling for so long that it's just it was bound to happen.
Normally don't talk this much because normally Kevin's in here blabbing. About time we got to say some stuff. My favorite GPP play. Oh God, I don't want to say it. I think I'm gonna say Aaron Rodgers.
Overall?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Aaron Rodgers. TJ Kid's a fantasy god. Thank you, Bobby. Yeah, my camera's off. I don't know why Matt said I was ugly today. Yeah. Good cheap running backs. Any thoughts, Matt? I think Montgomery's a pretty good cheap option.
That's a good question, actually. Let's look at that real quick.
I think Gaskins is a pretty good cheap option at 5,400.
A lot of people on Gaskin this week. Well, more so than normal.
It's just the Jets, man. It's just that matchup. I think that people are honing in on. I think Montgomery at 5,800 is a good cash play. I can get behind Gaskins. We've seen Devontae Freeman get more accustomed in that Giants offense. It's a tough matchup against that Redskins front 7, but I think the opportunity's been there coming off 17 carries against Dallas, so he's getting more acclimated in that offense. 20 total touches, so I could get behind him potentially at 4,900. Don't take Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay's probably going to go for 100 yards now. Full PPR, start 2. Godwin, Fuller, and Boyd. I'm going Godwin and Boyd. I like Boyd.
We got people yelling at us. Type in all caps. See that?
Yep. People want answers. Yep. Henry or Davis in cash. I'm going Henry.
Henry or Davis? Is that the question?
Yep. Derrick Henry or Mike Davis. I'm going Henry.
Henry. I just like Henry a lot this week.
Bobby said Crowder. Okay, Bobby. Brashard Perriman's back, so tread lightly. Thoughts on Ronald Jones? Again, I think this game's going to be a shootout. If this game isn't a shootout, I love Ronald Jones. Evan Ingram versus Washington. Who do you got, Matt? You like Evan Ingram versus Washington? I'm staying away from that.
I hate that game. I don't like anybody in that game.
Mattinson and Thielen in the same cash lineup. Yep, I can get behind that. Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor as pivots from Mattinson and Davis. Love that. I love that.
Yeah, I don't like Jonathan Taylor as much, but yeah, overall, I like the pivot.
Love Jonathan Taylor. Taylor looks good. That he does. Tight end, Giants, Dolphins, Titans, or Lions? Which tight end?
I love how you're doing that.
Which one, Matt?
Oh, wait. Are they saying from those teams?
Which one?
Why didn't he say the teams? Or why didn't he say the players?
Which one?
I like Jonnu Smith.
Okay, so I like Gesicki, I like Jonnu Smith, and I like TJ Hawkinson.
I like Hawkinson as my GPP.
I'm going to say Hawkinson, yeah. Frisker, 2,500 punt play instead of Irv Smith. Tuck Silva. Look at this
look
guy.
at
Guy's on the radio. He comes in. Yeah, Tuck, do your thing. Go ahead. Get off of Irv Smith. Tuck and I, he's going to text me about Irv Smith after this. He loves Irv Smith.
No Drew Sample questions, though.
What'd you say?
No,
yeah,
no Drew Sample.
No Drew Sample around here. I'm pissed that my camera isn't on. Taylor Connor going over.
Here, I can bring you up. I can bring you up.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Jonathan Taylor going overlooked. I definitely agree on that, as is James Conner. Matt always loves James Conner. Devante Adams for GPPs. Yes, definitely love Devante Adams. I'm going to have some Rodgers and Devante Adams stacks. Thoughts on Lindsey, Matt?
No.
Again, we keep talking about Philip Lindsay. If you want to throw him in cash and you want to use him as, as a salary saver, like, go ahead, but you're just going to – I think you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'd rather go Royce Freeman. And
no,
I think
either.
that's it. Oh, you did bring me up.
Yeah,
wow, I got to put my sweatshirt back on.
Yeah. Sorry about that. All right. Yeah, Adams for GPP. I like that. We're also going over the time. TJ, thanks for shooting through those questions. I have to update the Patreon cheat sheet. By the way, guys, I didn't have a chance to market our Patreon, our lovely Patreon, so I have to do that real quick for you guys. $20 a month gets you all of our favorite leverage spots. Also, Discord chat, an overwhelming community with some coaches to help you guys in pre-locks, pretty much with every other question that you guys have leading up through lock, and also late minute pivots. So if you guys want to do that, again, $20 a month gets you that and so much more. TJ, any last words before we go ahead and sign off today?
Good luck, guys. Oh, hold on, Sammy, real quick. Gaskin for GPP. Sorry for the streaming, by the way. No, you're good, Sammy. We're just making some fun. Yeah, no, I like Gaskin for the GPP. It's a good matchup.
No,
I have no other words. Pray for me and pray for a Bucks.
He's going all in.
Oh my God, Packers. I can't. Pray for that shootout, guys. If that game shoots out, I'm moving to Hawaii.
Also, pray for my voice too. So that
you got to figure out the squeaks, man. That's brutal. You're so lucky my camera wasn't on when you squeaked.
Why were you laughing?
Yeah, obviously the last one was yeah, of course I was. Okay. I can't believe you took my eyes down off camera, man.
Let's get off.
Everybody's gonna look at you. Everybody's just looking at you.
I'm on the spotlight.
Isaiah, you're welcome, man.
All right, you ready? You ready to get off?
Yep.
With all that being said, guys, have a great rest of your day. Let's cash.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.